Hi everyone. In this video, what I'm going to be showing you is how to create a 2D drawing from a 3D model, and it'll look something like what you see here on the screen. We're also going to talk about applying dimensions such as these to the drawing. So I'll go ahead and get started. What we're going to do is we're going to click to start a new drawing. And the dialog box that pops up is similar to what we've been looking at through the whole activity. But in this case, we want to use a drawing. So we've started with parts, and then we moved to assemblies, and now we're working on drawings. And the template that we're going to be using is the ANSI millimeter template. So if I have that selected, I can go ahead and click Create. And now you see I have my new drawing. The first thing that we're going to do is we're going to play around with changing the sheet size. So if I zoom in on this drawing, you'll see that this is a D size sheet, which is a pretty large drawing. For the parts that we've been drawing, we're going to use a slightly smaller sheet size. We're going to use a B for Bob size sheet. And the way you can change that is over here in your browser window. You can highlight or hover your cursor over the sheet 1. And then if you right click, the pop-up menu gives you an option to edit the sheet. If you select that, you'll see here you can select a different sheet size from this drop-down menu. And like I said, we'll be using B. B will work for all of the parts that we've drawn to date. So this is the sheet size that I would like you to use. Over here, you can select the orientation. 99% of the time, drawings are going to be in landscape orientation, but you do also see from time to time portrait as well. In our case, we have landscape already selected, so we're going to go ahead and keep that selection and click OK. You'll see now that the sheet size is smaller. You can tell because the title block relative to the rest of the piece of paper at this point has become a lot bigger. So we know we got the B size sheet. It's also shown here. Okay, so the next step would be to bring a 3D model into our sheet of paper. And the way to do that is to use the Place Views toolbar and select a base view. A dialog box pops up and there is a little search icon to open an existing file. That's what we want. So if I click that, I can select now from any of my existing 3D part files or assembly files. The sheet I showed you right at the beginning of the video was housing 1. So I'm going to use that part and I'll click open. And you'll see that now I have the opportunity to select which view I want as my base view. And you can do that with the View Cube tool. So if I click arrows to the right, it shows me the right side view, the back view, left side, front view. I could also do the same for top and bottom. In our case, this front view is what we want as our base view. It shows the most detail, so that's what we're going to use. Before I finish in this dialog box, there's a couple things I need to do. One is select scale, and I'd recommend you select the largest scale you can while still fitting on the sheet of paper. So I've gone to a 1:1 scale, and we're just going to kind of see what that looks like on our piece of paper. So there's the front view. For this part, I actually only need 2 views to fully dimension things. So I've got my front view, and now I'm going to show a right view. It's very easy. Inventor does this automatically for you. All I'm doing is moving my mouse to the right, and it will project the right view. If I went down off of my base view, I would get a bottom view. Likewise, if I went up, I'd get a top view. And to the left, we'd have a left view. Now, if we go diagonally, what we get is an isometric view. And because we have these 3D models, I want to see you always put an isometric view in your drawing. So I'm going to click once to place that right view, which I know I want. That has the details on my sideboard. And the other view I'm going to place is my isometric view. And at this point, I could click OK, which I'll do. Now my front and my right view look pretty good, but the isometric view obviously needs to move. It needs to get onto the sheet of paper. So I've just clicked and dragged. When you move into a view, you'll see the box around it will highlight red. It'll be like a red dotted line. And once you're in there, you'll see this little move icon pop up next to your cursor. Once you have that, you can move this about your sheet of paper. This drawing is at this point kind of crowded. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the scale just of the isometric view. I can make this scale a little smaller because I don't need to dimension anything on here. This is just really a pictorial view to show what the parts look like. All the information I apply to this drawing is going to be on the 2D views. So the way I can change the scale is with my cursor inside the box for this view, I can right click, and in my radar menu, I can select Edit View. The same box that we were looking at earlier pops up, and now I can change the scale, and I can make it a 1:2 scale, so it's half size. Click OK. I'm going to move this a little bit closer to the corner, and now I'm ready to do a few more things. The first we'll talk about is the title block. For our drawings, we want to change the drawn by field, the title field, and the drawing number field. So to do that, we can come over here to the browser window again, and we'll right click here where it says ANSI large and edit definition. So if you'll notice here, we are actually in the sketch view of the title block. So we could change all the dimensions of this title block, but what we really want to just change is text. Like I said, we want to alter the drawn by. So if I double click on author, I get a pop-up box. And if I click on the author field, it highlights blue. And now I can put in my first initial, last name, all in capital letters, no lowercase, always capitals. The title, we can double click that and change that to housing. Drawing number, we can call it housing as well. Just for the sake of being different, I'll call it housing 1. And at this point, I'm done. So I can click Finish Sketch and accept the changes. So my title block is now updated. This drawing is ready for dimensioning and center marks. It's important that we add center marks to all of our hole locations so that we can pull dimensions from them and that they are properly indicated as holes. So to do that, we go to the Annotate tab and select this icon here, which is center mark. Now if we click on each circle, it'll apply crosshairs, which is a center mark for a circle. So those are done. Now we also want to apply center mark for the hidden line views of our holes. You can use this button, which is center line bisector. It'll ask you for 2 lines and it will place a center line between them. So I'm selecting the edges of my holes. And there we go. So center marks are applied. Now we're ready for dimensions. And just before I get to dimensions, I want to show you how you can change the dimension style. If you come over to the Manage toolbar, Styles Editor will pull up a fairly extensive pop-up box. And you'll notice here in the browser view, there's a lot of information you can change here for your drawing. In our case, we want to change dimensional data, so we're going to expand dimension, and we want to change the default ANSI millimeters, which should be here. Now, for our units, millimeters is selected, which we want. Precision, for most of our drawings, just the number, the whole number for the millimeters is going to be sufficient. There may be one or two dimensions where we need one decimal place. So if we select either 0 here or 1.1, that will work for the majority of our drawings. You can also change your arrow size, but really I'd suggest you just leave that as it is. One thing I like to change, and it's a personal preference for me, is the vertical dimensions. When I do a vertical dimension, I want the text to remain horizontal, like along with all the other text that's on that page. For example, in the title block, all my horizontal dimensions. So I select this one. So that'll keep the numbers horizontal, and I don't have to turn my head or rotate the piece of paper if I'm looking at it to read what's there. I also like to do the same thing with aligned dimensions. Again, this comes down to personal preference for me. This is how I like my drawings to be, so I just want to show you that this can be done. So I can save and close once the edits are made, and I can come back to my annotate toolbar, and I could start adding dimensions to the features of my drawing. You can see here we've done the diameter for the circle. One thing we can do now is, because there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 circles, we could say diameter, 6 holes, and something like equally spaced. You don't want to override what you see here with these arrows. That's the dimensional data, but you can write or add text before or after this field. So in our case, you see I've added text after. So what I would do here to proceed is keep adding dimensions for my holes. And I want to pull for diameters, I want to pull those on an angle away from the hole and try to align them. You can see I've tried to align them where the diameter symbol is all straight, in a straight line vertically. You can try to move this one to better line up with the other ones. Okay, so we'd continue around this view to apply all of those dimensions. Over here, we can show the location of our sidebore, as well as the height of this part. So I just do that quickly. Again, you're using dimension, and we'll come from this line to our center mark. If I zoom in here, I want to show you how these dimensions snap into position. You'll notice as I drag this up and down that it becomes dashed in certain locations. So these are standard distances from the object that we're dimensioning, and that's what we should snap to. So if I was pulling this dimension up, this is my first dimension off the object. I want to use that first snap location. To show the overall height, I would obviously want to snap one more increment away from the part. So this should be basically 3/8 of an inch between this dimension and the object line. And between this first dimension and my second dimension, I should have 1/4 of an inch. Again, if I came over and showed the diameter of this part, I would want to snap to the first snap location. But in this case, I should show from the bottom line to my center mark, I should show a dimension for that. So I'm going to pull this out to the second snap point so that I can come in here and put this dimension at the first snap location. Okay, so again, this isn't done, but it would have a few more dimensions in here. You obviously need diameter for your bore and your counter bore. And we could show the depth of these holes, or we could write the depth for these holes in this text field. Okay, so hopefully you find this video helpful, and we'll continue on with the next video. Thanks for watching.